The biggest launch in Xbox history is about to take place. Maybe I could qualify that as recent history, because the biggest launch in Xbox history was obviously the Xbox itself. But when it comes to new games, it's really been a long time since Xbox has had an IP that has really generated as much hype as we are seeing currently for Starfield, which by the time you're watching this may already be out, but it's coming out in about 36 hours from now, something like that. And the hype is through the roof because Microsoft, Xbox, Bethesda, all the studios are doing everything they can to promote this title, and Microsoft appears to have a lot of confidence that it's going to go over well. We're seeing collabs across the board, and I want to dive into why I really think that this might be just the biggest launch in Xbox history. But first, the collabs. First off, we are seeing promotional material coming from every which way. First off, my favorite collab so far has been with Adam Savage over on his Tested channel, where they are building, or they're taking a spaceship and they're bringing it into real life and they're building a model. I believe there's one more video in the series. They just posted one today, but an interesting collab that honestly I didn't expect, but I really quite like. There's also the Elgato collab with the Stream Deck and I believe it's their Wave microphone, donning the Starfield attire, very classic looking Starfield material. And Microsoft once again, and Xbox I should say, they're going all out. There is no stone unturned, and I mean quite literally no stone unturned. Probably the least surprising collab was the Funko Pop here. But they're just all over. Like, right here's a hard drive from Seagate, an external hard drive, donning the Starfield design language, if you want to call it that. There's also, Microsoft is not leaving out first-party collabs. Like, I guess maybe it's not a collab, but you have your Starfield controller and headset, which got their own unique style and look. Microsoft once again going all out, over the top, trying to prove that this Starfield collaboration is a very big launch for the company. And it doesn't stop there. Of course, if you wind the clock back a little bit further, kind of ridiculous, but awesome at the same time, they did a collab with AMD. And there's a CPU and a GPU that are the quote-unquote official hardware for the PC for the release of the game. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, to the point that today there was actually a music collab with Imagine Dragons, and they made a song. Now, this isn't the first time I think Microsoft has done this, or Xbox I should say. However, it's a pretty big deal when you team up with an artist at the caliber of Imagine Dragons, a top tier sort of music, able to climb the charts artist, and have a song specifically for a game. It is the final check, if you will, as Microsoft continues to push towards this epic release for Starfield. Now, before I get to a letter that Todd Howard put out, I want to kind of reel this in to why this isn't so important, because there's going to be a lot of comments that say, no, Diablo 4 was actually a bigger launch. There were other titles, the Redfall or whatever else. Redfall actually would probably be the most comparable to Starfield, because Microsoft, Xbox, and Game Pass and everything else is hinging on this title actually being really damn good. Remember, they've already delayed it roughly a year from when it was supposed to release. It was supposed to release, 11/11/22 last year, and now it's coming out, and obviously in September 1st, for lack of better terms, in 2023. More importantly, launching a new IP like this is a really hard thing to do. It's really tough to get new IP out there. You might say Halo Infinite should have been the biggest launch because, hey, it's a chance to redeem themselves. Obviously, we know what happened there, but Microsoft had a lot of these collabs across the industry. But with Starfield, it's Todd Howard's name. It's everybody's believed that this title is pretty well polished. Remember, Halo Infinite had that infamous July incident, I believe it was in July, where they showed off Halo, and that's where Craig came from. Bethesda has been able to avoid that with Starfield. Now, granted, Matt Booty has come out and said there's the fewest bugs of the game. I guarantee you there's going to be a post out there that says, look at all these great bugs that are in Starfield, because that is just the nature of a game when you're playing it the day one. Remember, there's a great quote that says, if you buy a game on the first day it's available, you pay the most amount of money for the worst game possible, right? Because they haven't time to patch it. They haven't tried to change to balance the mechanics and everything else. But that being said, so much is riding on this title for Microsoft, which is why we're seeing collabs come all over the place, including Rockstar Drakes is also jumping in because, they kind of get in on all this stuff. But Game Pass has to survive and has to thrive. And games like Starfield are a title that can last a generation, right? I firmly believe that, right, this is the launching point for Starfield. They're not just going to put this title out there and then it's going to sit and marinate and just let it sit and do nothing with it. This is a new story. This is a new universe for that matter. And Microsoft, I bet, has extensive plans about how they are going to continue to build games, or Bethesda, I should say, inside the Xbox universe, are going to continue to build games around this space genre and continue to evolve it. One day I hope we see like a true multiplayer game spin out from this. But obviously right now the focus is on getting Starfield out the door, getting the shipbuilder and everybody building their ships and doing colonizations and everything else. If you can't tell, I'm quite excited about this title launching tomorrow. But I want to get into the letter that Todd wrote to the team. So this is Jez got the scoop on this. He said, this is back in 2013, if I could enunciate, 2013. Robert Altman's door. He said, got a few minutes. He said, sure. It was early 2013. We were developing Fallout 4 and Skyrim. 2013, so a decade ago. It would not be a sequel to our current game. He was trying to pitch him on the new game, but a brand new space RPG and our first new IP in over 25 years. It would delve into creation and the search for our place in the universe. You would explore the galaxy in ways only video games can do, and it would be called Starfield. He goes on to talk about really the teams and everybody else who came together to really make this possible. Now, the core development on this game, as noted by Todd, has really been in the past 3 years or so, right? That makes a lot of sense. There's so much prep work leading up to it. It's like, what's your art style? What's your music style? What is the color palette? How do we actually want to structure the game? What is the core game loop that's going to be in this title? What are the missions? What's the plot? Getting all the writing done is a massive effort leading up to the release of this. And Microsoft has clearly shown that they are going all in to support Starfield and this release. Which is why it's so critical, because Microsoft has had, let's be candid, a lot of misses recently, right? Halo Infinite obviously didn't perform, Redfall, and there's other titles, but you have to count things like Flight Simulator did exceptionally well, and other titles have continued to do well, but they haven't been able to launch a new IP that really helps to separate out what Xbox is, and Starfield is it. I guarantee this was probably one of the core IPs when Microsoft was looking to spend, I believe it was about $7 billion on Bethesda. They're like, look, what can we get? What are we getting for our money that's not out there? Because building new IP is how you build longevity into these brands, right? You can only rehash Halo so many times, only Gears of War so many times. Sure, they're great games. Forza, they're great games, but people get excited about new titles because Forza is like, you know what to expect. Gears, you know what to expect. Starfield, none of us really know what to expect at this point. Sure, we've played games like Skyrim. We have vague ideas about how building an inventory will probably work because we've used the controllers in those schematics and everything else. But at the end of the day, the story's brand new, the ships are brand new, the mechanics of flying through space are brand new for the most part. And so I think this is just a massive pivotal point for Xbox. If the launch goes well and Microsoft gets high Metacritic scores, it is going to do absolute wonders for the brand and, more importantly, for Game Pass, because I suspect that they're going to have pretty high numbers sign up for Game Pass just to get into Starfield. Why is that? Have you been noticing the tricky thing that Microsoft has been doing with Game Pass? It used to be that you could get your first month for $1, and then there were headlines. Microsoft is no longer doing 1 month, $1. It's now 2 weeks. And then magically, as soon as we got inside that 2-week window, Microsoft started closing the loop around, like closing it in even more, because they're expecting a lot of people to sign up. And of course, Microsoft needs to make money on Starfield, and they're hoping two ways. One, people sign up for Game Pass, or they buy the premium edition for an extra, I think it's $34 to get the title 5 days early. And you get people like me who actually paid for that because I want to be able to play this tomorrow night. And so, yeah, this is such a launch point, and I hope that it goes well. I suspect, given how early Microsoft handed out release review codes to reviewers, obviously, I do not have one, full transparency, so I am going in blind just like everybody else, that they are confident. I believe it was something like 2 weeks ahead of release, not to mention the reviews are dropping ahead of the release, which isn't something we saw, I believe, with Redfall. So keep that in mind. Microsoft clearly has a lot of confidence. Now, we already know something Starfield's going to get dinged on, right? It's 30 frames per second. That is going to be a downer and would probably keep it from getting potentially 10 out of 10, something like that. It's definitely going to show up in every single review. This game would be great if it was 60 frames per second or higher for that matter. And so little things like that are probably going to eat away at the upper end of the score, but I bet Microsoft is shooting for above a 90 Metacritic on this. But we will find out. We should, in about 24 hours or so, we will absolutely know how this game performs, at least through reviewers. And obviously reviewers don't know be all end all. And so the game will get updated, so like a Cyberpunk. But hopefully on day one, it's a wonderful experience and I'm hyped. And this is the last video I'm going to do before Starfield gets released, I think, unless something drops tomorrow. So as always, my friends, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this channel is me.